I said 1,000 times I wouldn't do it, but the Batman Premium format has entered the Secret Sanctuary. So I've had a real love-hate relationship with this piece, and the beginning part was all hate, 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 and I've evolved into love. So it's been maybe 1.5 years since this came out, and I had the same complaints that a number of collectors had. I thought the pants looked like chaps. I thought the back looked like a hunchback. There were many things about it that I didn't like, and so I held back. I didn't buy it. I held on to my previous Sideshow PF and was happy with that, although that one did have its own issues. We all remember the armpit issue. It was a very tippy statue. I always kept 2 dimes underneath one side of the base, which seemed to right that problem, but shouldn't have had to do that. And then, of course, that big sculpted cape always made displaying it a challenge, and it tended to bend my shelves because it was a very heavy statue. This one is, I think, only about 15 pounds, so it's much more reasonable. But let me give you some close-ups and give you a better idea of why I changed my mind and why eventually I decided to go ahead and get this statue. So you might have seen Batman Statue Collector's review of this piece just a couple of weeks ago. He thought he was the last collector in the world to pick this up. Well, it turns out it's me. I'm the last guy, until someone else comes along. So Chris, Batman Statue Collector, he was replacing the Batman PF that he had displayed with his Rogues Gallery. For me, Batman is part of the JLA setup that I have here. So one of the biggest factors in my decision to go with this one is that this style, this sculpt, this design was made to be part of the trilogy, the new Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman premium formats from a couple of years ago, or 1.5 years ago. And once I started looking at those pictures on the Sideshow site that showed all 3 of them together, I thought, man, that looks pretty cool. And I really, to be honest, prefer this pose to the pose of the previous PF. It's just more action-oriented. The previous line of premium formats from Sideshow were very much museum poses, whereas with this line, the new premium formats, they've given each of them kind of an action pose, but it's not a dramatic action pose. So for example, Superman has been battling Brainiac and has just ripped off one of the robot heads from Brainiac, and it's a very awesome base. So there's more going on there than in the previous PF. Same thing with Wonder Woman. She's descending a staircase into Hades, and she's got her lasso all ready to go there. So obviously she's in the middle of some sort of battle. Aquaman is a movie piece, I know, but I'm using him as part of my JLA setup. He's got the Ocean Master helmet, so apparently he's been battling Ocean Master. And same thing with Green Arrow. He's got an arrow ready to go there. So it's not all just Captain Morgan poses. There is a story to tell with these new PFs. And I felt the same was true here. You've got Batman in a graveyard on top of Amadeus Arkham's grave. I like the reference to Mad Dog. That's kind of cool. And of course you've got some really nice details in this base that were not really present in the previous premium format. I really like the variation in color on the bricks, the tombstones, and all the detail on Batman's costume. One of the things that bothered me, there was this whole controversy about the chaps, and maybe it's happening with my video too, but in the pictures on Sideshow's site, there was more of a contrast in color between, I guess what you'd call the chap part, and the rest of his pants. When you see it in person, there's not as much variation in color, so you don't notice them as much. Even looking through the lens here, I can see that this area looks kind of black and this area looks like a silver gray. But when you're looking at it with your own eyes, it's more of a single color and it doesn't really stand out. I really love the portrait. There's an intensity there that I really, really like. I decided to go, we made a lot of fun on statue form of these blades. I had decided to use just the one in his right hand because I did want the fist on the left hand. I thought that denoted some action. Whereas having both of them, it's not just a batarang. There was a lot of jokes about, what is he doing, cutting up meat, or, what is the purpose of these blades? I did want to show one because I think they look cool, but I really like the fist, so I went with the fist. Very good detail on the utility belt, all the way around. It was much simpler on the previous PF. Just want to open up all those things and see what's inside. The cape is really nice. I have not futzed with it much. I'm generally not one to spend a lot of time on fabric capes to make them flow. I've done the same thing you'll see here with Superman. I just kind of have it hanging down. And that's because I like to minimize the space that each piece takes. I like to have a little bit of space in between each. And that could change, I might futz with it later, but for now, I'm going to leave it just the way it is. I remember Dave Igo saying they had spent a lot of time on this cape. It is pretty cool. I like the color variation with kind of the dirty on the bottom, leading up to this kind of black leather. I don't know if it's a faux leather or some other kind of material, but it flows really well. I really like it. Okay, I want to show you how he looks with the other members of the Trinity. Okay, here he is displayed with Superman and Batman, and I just think they look fantastic together. I tried each variation as far as positioning him to the left of Superman, to the right of Superman, having Wonder Woman in the middle, and I prefer this arrangement the best. But I just feel like the designs go together extremely well. Much better than having the original PF in its place. Don't get me wrong, I liked that statue. I especially liked the two portraits. I think they're fantastic. But this seems more modern as far as detail, and it just seems like it fits better with this new line. I'll go back a little further and show you Green Arrow and Aquaman, and you can see a JLA line building here. So I'm really looking forward to getting the Flash. I have a problem as far as Green Lantern in that I grew up with Hal Jordan, and so he's my Green Lantern. And the most recent PF from Sideshow was John Stewart. And there's some good stuff about that piece and some not so great stuff about that piece. There are older premium formats of Hal Jordan, but I think they would look a bit dated with these pieces. So I'm not sure how I'm going to handle Green Lantern in this setup. The other problem I have is, if you notice, every one of these pieces, starting with Green Arrow, each character is looking over their left shoulder. All of them, all 5. So it's kind of cool because I can sit on my couch and they're all looking in my direction. which is kind of how I wanted it. Flash is not going to be that way. Flash is going to be the opposite. I think his arm is stuck up beside his head, on the left side of his head. So he needs to be positioned in the opposite direction somehow. And I haven't figured out yet how I'm going to make that work. But that's how Batman looks with this new JLA. And I think it looks pretty great. So I believe this piece is $600. I had $107 in rewards points plus a $25 promotional code from Sideshow from a previous purchase. And those two things cushioned the blow a little bit, made it a little bit more palatable to spend the money on this piece. Again, if you're thinking about it, I would encourage you to try to see it with your own eyes. I know that's really difficult right now with the quarantine. There's no comic shops open. There's no conventions going on. Maybe you've got another collector near you that picked it up. But it's better in person. I mean, it really is. The pictures on Sideshow's site emphasize some of the things that you might not like about the piece. So if you can, take a look at it in person and then make your decision. With that said, I am selling the previous PF. And I'm selling it for $2.99, which I think is a very low price. But it has a little bit of damage to it. I didn't even know it until I took it apart to box it up. But when I took off the utility belt, there were 3 tears in his black trunks underneath the utility belt caused by the utility belt that I wasn't aware of. It is not visible when you display it. The utility belt covers up those defects, but I didn't want to sell it as a new statue at a new price. So $2.99 on my website. My website is www.detective27.com. So if you're interested, take a look there. I put a half a dozen pictures of that piece on the website, and there's maybe a dozen other statues on there if you want to take a look at those too. Otherwise, not sure when I'll be back. I'm still waiting for Sideshow Colossus, several Tweeterhead pieces, including Robin, Batgirl, Green Lantern, Starfire. And then, of course, I just got the delay notice for Deja Thoris from Sideshow. That's not coming now until November of this year to February of next year, which is kind of a bummer. So, and I may do a review next week. I have a book coming in on Mac Raboy, one of the best Golden Age comic book artists. So I might do a review of that. Otherwise, try to enjoy your quarantine, and I'll see you real soon. Take care.